Yes? Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. And I believe there is a big traffic jam, so people may come in. So we'll in any case start so that. Okay. Um, why are we here today is children are a vulnerable group. They are vulnerable people. They depend on us, parents, to understand them and their problems. And they need us to take care of them when they fall sick. So when we give care to a child, it's all about teamwork. It's the manner in which doctors and mothers together shape the standard of, the manner in which we give care, doctors and mothers together, shape the standard of child care. And any improvement in this care can come only when mothers take complete charge. That's one single message we want to leave you with, that the mother takes complete onus and the doctor wholeheartedly supports the care process. Then together you can join hands to give the best possible care to the child. That is the essence of this program. And the way we have designed this whole evening, this afternoon, is that you will get the messages stage by stage, not all together. And we are keeping it very focused on how mothers and doctors can together deliver the best possible care and make the best of their times together. Thank you. I now call Dr. Amdekar to introduce this idea. The idea is his brainchild, and he is really the champion of this program. Thanks.
Well, I think the whole concept of coming together is based at the center of this concept is a mother who takes care of a child. And she knows the child very well. Whereas a pediatrician knows the science very well. Now, two things are a bit different. Okay, while I know science, that is applicable to general, to a specific child, the mother knows how well it can be applied. So if these two parties come together with a better communication, I feel that would really transform into a perfect child care. And I feel we are here only to kind of promote that kind of a communication, whereas one has an expertise, another has an intuition as a mother. And both are equally important, maybe the mother's intuition far more important. And if we get together, then it will foster and promote a very rational, honest and transparent care. That both the parties will work with faith of each other and not doubt what one does or doesn't do. And that's only possible if there is a kind of a communication between these two. And we are here just to kind of promote that. Now, both the parties have some responsibilities and some privileges. The parents have also some responsibility of observing correctly, making a kind of a document when they go to a doctor, so that all detailed information is given, and follow his advice, get all the explanation, make yourself very clear what the doctor has to say. But also understand that medicine is a science of uncertainty. And in this uncertainty, we are asked to take a very certain, definite decision. So, like looking at a human being, you won't know how well he would behave, though he is expected to behave well, just because of his caste, creed, religion, education, background, culture. Nothing can be guaranteed how he will behave. The immune system of a child also behaves the same way. And that is uncertainty. So same disease, same treatment does not work the same way. And parents need to know that every time the cure is not possible, but a care has to be given. Now this kind of a faith comes only with communication, and therefore a doctor's responsibility is to document what he says, which brings in honesty, communicate, counsel, ask any question that parents have, answer them, and form a kind of a joint faith with each other, because both aim to get the child better. Which doctor wants the child not to get well? And naturally, which mother also doesn't want, but everything doesn't get well quickly. So I think once we know both the parties have responsibility and privileges, both. In fact, it so happens that a parental privilege becomes a doctor's responsibility and vice versa. So both the parties should do that. Now, just to make this happen, all that we want to do is to change our mindset and a behavior. And that is what here we are, that we should change our pattern of thinking to meet the expected behavior socially. And I think this concept has come up only to foster that kind of a change in behavior of a doctor. He needs to sit in the shoes of a patient and that child's mother and see what tension she has, even if the child has 99-degree fever. For me as a pediatrician, 104 fever also doesn't do any harm. It doesn't do any harm physically, but it does tremendous harm mentally to the mother, and that is what I need to understand. While the mother must understand that just because doctor touches the child doesn't get well, because the nature takes its own course, and a fracture takes few months to get better, however rich you may be or however imported plaster you may bring. So again, the responsibilities and understanding comes out of that communication. And I think we want to bring this change of behavior. Finally, how will we bring this change of behavior? It will be only possible by two ways. One, an internal motivation. I want to change. Parents say we want to change. Doctors said we want to change. Internal motivation. Now, internal motivation may not be guaranteed. So there has to be an external motivation. And what is external motivation? In the Western countries, it's a legal pressure. In India, it should be the peer pressure that we create. You all parents must say that doctors must explain me everything. Now, if an occasional doctor doesn't explain, he is taken for task and say, no doctor, I want all this information. So that pressure will be an external motivation. And I think we are looking for a group of parents and doctors who take up this challenge. First thing we do from tomorrow is, I have changed. That's the beginning. And then I will change some more. This will happen. On my part, I am so happy that the Pediatricians Organization, Indian Academy of Pediatrics, and a Bombay branch, the president and secretary are here. And Dr. Uday Pai as the president has given us all the help and assurance that he will see that he spreads all this to pediatricians. Pediatricians to begin with, because children are the major focus of sickness and health. And the mothers really worry so much with even little thing going around. If an infant sleeps longer, she is worried. If the infant doesn't sleep also, she is worried. And as a doctor, I must understand what worry she has. I need not treat the child, but I can counsel the mother how not to worry. And Dr. Uday Pai has taken it as a challenge, as his project, that he will spread all over, including the parents, etc. That is the reason why we are here. We call this kind of a seedling group. Each one of you will take this further. We will meet sometime again once the ideas get crystallized after hearing all of you, and then decide how we spread this message. It has to spread, and in a year's time, we will come to a stage where every pediatrician and every parent understand what is responsible care. And I'm so happy to be associated with the paper wellness. As the word indicates, it's beyond health, a wellness. Health is not just all, wellness. And parents have so many small little problems which may not be big issues for us medically, but are a very important issues for them to know. I think that's why you're here. I thank you very much for being here. Of course, I thank he's my man only. Okay, but he is the leader of us, and he will take us further. And thank you very much, Krishnan, Bindu, and others who have taken really to say, yes, we will get together. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. So in this program, Dr. Pai and the Indian Academy of Pediatrics, they represent the voice of doctors, and Pepper Wellness represents the voice of mothers. I first called Dr. Pai to share about the need for this program from the doctor's perspective.
I think, we are all students, and at all times we are students, and we have had teachers who have really probably nurtured us over a long, 2 or 3 decades that we are. And when we were students, and even today, when we look at our education system, the 2 things that are missing in our education system is our ability to communicate. Even simple things in our syllabus today, whether at MBBS level or MD level, I don't think that any of our syllabus ever takes care to try to tell us how best we should communicate. And like Sir said, we as pediatricians are taking care of the most difficult part of science. And why difficult? We are dealing with children who are not complaining. And we are always listening to a third party complaining. Whenever pediatricians see, it's always a mother, and if there is a nanny, and a grandmother. So you have 3 people, and 3 people's observations which the doctor has to analyze. And automatically, yes, the anxiety level at 3 levels is different. The nanny who is taking care of the anxiety level is different. The mother taking care is different, and of course the grandmother is super different. Because you have a difficulty, you have an anxious mother and you have an experienced grandmother, and the experienced grandmother always has a say in, no, I mean yes or no, that kind of a situation. And at the end of the day, when you get all the information, analyze, come to a conclusion and try to advise the parents, we always also feel that yes, part of it also becomes the responsibility, like from the parent side, yes, part of it is that responsibility that what you communicate is going to be my analytical, so your communication, unless it's complete, is not going to allow me to come to a conclusion. Now, in addition to all this, as pediatricians, we also come across seriousnesses of illnesses. And in serious illnesses, there is an extreme expectation. And the expectation always related to the outcome. So we always feel that unless the communication is clear, and I usually chart it in a way there, yes, one is, like Sir said, it is science and knowledge from our side. Second, the passion of saying, yes, I am going to give the best outcome to the child. And the last, there's a small word which I add to it, compassion as what could be the outcome. And the best way to explain is in serious illnesses. Like, if you look at a prematurity, today with science being developed, I'm quite sure today even a 5-month pregnant woman who delivers even 750 or 1,000 grams, we are still able to send home. So that is the passion with which I'm able to give a result. But then I need to also sit down and tell the parents what to expect. Maybe at 1 month, at 3 months, at 6 months, at 1 month, 1 year. Because there are different developmental stages which the child has to go through. And though today science is developed, today, whether the eyes are fully developed, whether the child is going to have a vision defect, or whether the child is going to be mentally absolutely normal, whether the child is going to have some other difficulty later on in child, are possibilities. But unless I communicate, the parent has to understand at what stage, what has to happen. That communication is also important. So it does not only relate to what I do with the illness, but it's an ongoing process, and in which both mothers, parents, grandparents, nannies, caregivers, caretakers, all have to be a part and parcel of that activity. And of course, as Indian Academy of Pediatrics, we are into learning and teaching. So we want to disseminate this kind of a ability to as many. Let's start with pediatricians first, and of course we'll probably see if we can partner with more and more doctors of the different faculties so that we can take this message across, to see that there's an absolutely healthy communication between the parents or patients and doctors, so as to get rid of these small misgivings which lead to a lot of negativity on either side, or suspicion on either side. And that would probably be our role. And we expect both of us to work in tandem to achieve this goal. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Dr. Ambedkar talked about a model behavior. We currently, each mother deals with a health episode in a different way. He said that this program's essence is that each mother and the doctor practice a new social behavior. Now, before we get into what's the new social behavior, suppose we have a conversation about what do you expect as mothers, what do you expect from childcare, and as doctors, what do you expect from mothers as part of healthcare. So I want to start a conversation here, and I invite views from all of you as to what do you really expect from doctors.
No, it's. I think everyone can probably hear me. So, yeah, that's one. I'll come there. No problem. So, I think I am in a minority here, being a father. Yeah, Bhavesh, you got me right. So, myself, Bhavesh Shah. My baby is just 7 months now. Unfortunately, she cannot be here because she is not doing too well. So, the major issue I have with pediatrics mostly is time. I mean, of course I know that questions that we have is very small for them because they face children who are probably more ill than my child. Nice voice. So, so I think though information is available over the internet, though information is available by various other peer groups, still there is always a doubt that which is correct information and which is incorrect information. So we believe pediatrist might be the best person to guide us in that sense. That, okay, if I ask the pediatrist, she's not sleeping at night, that's okay. Many child do it. If I ask the pediatrist, she's not sleeping in the day, that's still okay. Many child do it. And sometimes they will just say that only to take care of the current situation. If she is having cough and cold, just take care of cough and cold. But for a parent, it's the whole day. It's the whole day round. Even if she has cough and cold, but she's not sleeping, we try to relate both of them. I mean, the reason she is not sleeping because she has cough and cold, but then it might be something different. So if the child is not eating properly, still she has no problem. She has no cough, no cold, nothing. If she is not eating properly, probably we'll rush to the pediatrist even then. That why she is not eating properly. But still they will feel that this is a very small problem. I have someone waiting who has a bigger problem. So probably time and explanation about what, as you said, what's to be expected. So my child probably will not sit at around 7 months or 8 months. So normally we'll ask them that what is the actual age. So they will say each child is different. But then why? I mean, why each child? I mean, I understand each child is different, but why she cannot sit at 8 months age when other child can? I mean, each mother has that question. That my peer group tell my peers tell that my child is sitting at 8 months, my child is crawling at 8 months. Why not my child? So that way we want time to be spent. Of course, it's very difficult. India has so huge population, so less number of pediatrists, good available pediatrists, that they need to devote their time to more important and urgent cases. But still, I prefer them giving at least 5 minutes. The pediatrist I visit, I'll not like to name him, he hardly takes more than 30 seconds sometimes. 30 seconds to 1 minute max, that's it. But yeah, his medicines do work. That's not a complaint.
I think what we are looking at is what we expect from each other. Okay, there will be always excuses of doing wrong things. And it's easy to explain why I do wrong things. We are not interested in that. Okay, so what we want is, like what he said, he expects time from a pediatrician. He expects a communication from pediatrician. Okay, that's very important. But you need to facilitate that a doctor gives you time. He has also same number of hours that you have. So would you like to go to a doctor only if required and not when not required? Would you like to go to somebody who is junior, good enough to tell you everything, or do you want the best doctor in this city who has no time? So here is a group that should decide that. I don't need for a simple cold, maybe a doctor at all. Okay. And if I think I need, I can go to anyone who has just passed yesterday. But I want the topmost in this city, I can afford him. Then that topmost has no time, so his knowledge is useless to you. So both sides. Doctor must spend time, no question. You need to facilitate him to spend time. And then this is the group exactly that would do that. Once we start going ahead, we also plan to tell you when you should see a doctor and when you should not see a doctor. Okay, that is the way a doctor can give you more time. In this, there has to be some kind of a judgment. Today, none of you have carried an umbrella because it's not going to rain. But 2 days ago in Aurangabad, it rained heavily. Now you don't know whether it rains here. If you had asked me, shall I bring the umbrella? I said no. And if it had rained, you would say, what kind of a doctor, senior, but doesn't know what is right. So again, each one must take a clue on what it is. But it's a good point he has made. We need to spend time. And my plea is, we must facilitate each other to give more time. I think that's the way we should be.
I don't know whether this is the right stage to make these comments, but of course time is the most important expectation of parents. So as sir said, how can parents help doctors to give you more time? I mean, we must give you time, that's a taken. But as we said, some responsibilities are there of parents. So I'll give you 4 or 5 offhand examples. Some of us do entertain phone calls from parents, some of us don't, that's besides. When a parent phones a doctor, the information should be clear with the parent. So for example, if the doctor says that, okay, just now give a antipyretic for fever. Now there will be a debate for 5 minutes on which antipyretic, because shall I give Crocin or Calpol? Now if you've been coming to the doctor, you know they are all same. After finishing the whole discussion, after asking the spelling, wait a minute, I will get a pen and paper. No, these things happen, and this is where, or reaching an appointment in time, attempting to, then saying that there was a lot of traffic. Traffic is there every day. So as sir said, we must look at the doctor's side. He also has the same hours. If he has been forced to sit idle for half an hour because 3 appointments didn't turn up, and all 3 turned up after half an hour together, then if he is blamed for rushing and giving less time. So these are some examples of responsibilities on the side of parents, how they can help the doctor save time by not asking repetitive questions, being ready with pen and paper, writing your queries, whatever has been solved, don't repeat it. Father comes after parking the car, then again father asks the same question again. These things happen, and this we can try to minimize.
Sorry though I'm late. Yeah. We want to reach every district of Maharashtra, and an observation which I have had in a practice. Remember, doctor also has had a busy day, and he also has a life to spend with. So many times you get a call at 1:30 at night. Sir, my child is running fever. Can you give me something? Simple question I asked them: how long has the fever been there? It is there for 2 days. I said the fever was there for 2 days, and you got time now at 1:30 at midnight to wake up the doctor and tell him that I got fever. It is unfair. And remember, a doctor who was in good humor, Maji Pan Satakli. That situation happens, So it's so many times he has just arrived, he has had his dinner at 11:30, 12. He may be watching a little. He must have gone on the internet to see whether his calls have been attended or not, and you get a call. My child has running fever for 2 days, but he got time now. So please, not that we understand the patients.
it's a bit of a dilemma which ones to give, which ones not to give. So yeah, that was my biggest challenge when I was first time out.
See, when I see a newborn,
Yeah.
we normally tell them these are the vaccines available in the market, and this is the schedule that is available in the municipal hospital. Remember, the schedule is always framed by the UNICEF or WHO. And that particular schedule is passed on to the, say, a government of India. Government of India will modify it according to our needs. But universally, the schedule is same. The problem comes to certain vaccines are available, and then the government cannot afford it. So we always offer you, hey, these are the vaccines available. You take a call depending upon your pocket. If I advise a vaccine which is very costly and you can't afford it, is not justified. So we always see the patient's economics, because the well-being of the patient is our priority. So we always put it across to them, this vaccine is at the corporation level and this vaccine we can give you, but the cost is the factor, and if you can afford it, you must take it. Whenever, whoever your pediatrician, neonatologist, who is visiting the gynecologist, I'm sure all of us make it very clear that these are the vaccines, and they have been always, most of us have printed that schedule in our files, and you follow that schedule. A slight change may depend upon your financial situations.
I think what I mean is that all vaccines are good, but each vaccine has a percentage of benefit that you will get. What I mean is that if you are at a very minimal risk of a disease, then taking a vaccine has a very small advantage for you. But the risk gives you all and makes it free for all is a must for everyone, because the risk of that disease being very severe is very high. But then there are other diseases, like you may not be aware that all of us here are susceptible to typhoid, and none of us must be taking typhoid vaccine. Is it right or wrong? That would be your confusion. If you are hygienic and if you know where you are eating, you have no risk of typhoid, you need not take a vaccine. But if you are in a habit of eating anything anywhere, then you may as well take a vaccine. This is where the opinions may differ, but if I ask you from here to go to VT, shall I take a train or a bus or a taxi? Opinions may differ, but the principle is same. If you want to go quickly, it's a train. If you want to go at ease, it's a bus. And if you have a lot of money, it's a taxi. All three opinions are right, but when we discuss, are you in a hurry? Take a train. Are you having enough money? Take a taxi. Then the opinions become one. So you're right that opinions may vary, but here we are to convince you that when we discuss, opinions becomes only one. Whereas when we don't discuss, each one thinks what is best for him, tells you what is best for him.
Just to add to that, see, as pediatricians, and sir has always said that we are interested in protecting and preventing illness. And I think as pediatricians, we are the only ones amongst the doctor fraternity who are more interested in wellness of your child. If you actually look at it, doctor will talk to you about what to do to keep the child healthy, what is the right time that exclusive breastfeeding, what's the right time to start weaning, what's the right time. So all these protective and preventive aspects that we would like to promote are basically things which pediatricians will promote. I think yes, I think you would like to bring is, it is probably the doctor's onus to explain what vaccine is being given and what does it protect you against. I think that onus has to come from us. And I think yes, just like you probably feel that, I don't know what vaccine to take, is probably because the doctor hasn't taken 2 minutes to tell you what it will protect you against. And believe it or not, as pediatricians, as responsible pediatricians or as pediatricians, we would like to actually tell all mothers that over the period of last decade, with all the new vaccines which have come, we have probably covered up almost 60% of the illnesses, which is why today our onus is more on wellness and less on illness. Lot of illnesses which we saw a decade back, we are not seeing today. Diarrhea is under control today. Lot of pneumonia is under control today. Because of BCG, part of tuberculosis is under control. So lot of things are under control because of vaccination. So there's no way that we can say that, oh, I don't know about vaccination. But newer and newer vaccinations keep coming. And even in the vaccinations, there are changes. What was once understood to be, once you give it lifetime protection, we have realized that after 10 years, there's little amount of waning, you need to take a booster. And like Sir said today, if I ask any of you, how many of you eat outside, I'm quite sure Sir is the first who will come and say, Sunday's kitchen is closed in Bombay. Only the hotel kitchen works. So there's nobody who can say, I don't eat outside. And if you eat outside, whether it's roadside or it's 5-star, you're still at the same susceptibility of a simple illness like typhoid. And the only vaccine available for typhoid is to be given every 3 years. And you'd say, why 3 years? Oh, every Sunday you eat outside, but once in 3 years you get vaccinated. It's a very simple way of putting them. Maybe we need to understand. And yes, if you feel, I think the doctor has failed in trying to communicate to you as to what are the needs and what does it protect you against. Yeah.
You wanted to say something?
Yeah, I wanted to ask, it's usually said there are two types of vaccination. One is painless and the other is the regular one. So since like a mother, you will obviously opt for painless. But this painless is usually asked a question when you go to a private doctor, like a pediatrician. But once when you go to the municipality, they don't ask. So I give painless. I just wanted to ask, what is the difference between the painless and the normal one?
The benefits are just the same. Benefits are just the same. Okay, what is different is the painless one rarely causes pain. Not that it never causes pain. And a painful one rarely causes no pain. Okay, so if you are lucky and I give you the painful one and you don't have pain, you are happy. But if I give you a painless one and you get pain, you wonder which one did I give. So I tell the parent 99% this is true. Because after all, it's the response of the child. But what is difference is the cost. So benefits are same. There is no difference. And if you accept a pain for a day, which can be taken care of by paracetamol, benefits are equal. Absolutely. It all depends on your mindset. You rightly said to begin with, most of the parents prefer painless. Yeah.
But honestly speaking, it is not painless, it is less pain. It's wrongly advocated as painless. We should honestly say it is less pain. So less chances, that's the point.
So this is not regarding vaccinations. See, there are certain protocols which most of the doctors follow. But something like when you've just delivered, 6 months breastfeeding is compulsory, is one protocol which is followed. But there's a lot of difference in opinion about weaning. Some say by 1 year you should wean, some say 2 years. So if there can be a consensus in India or the lifestyle that we have and common consensus among doctors, there will be less confusion. And mothers also will be relaxed. Like I sometimes, my baby is not eating a lot of solid food. She still takes. Sometimes I feel that, and she gets up a lot in the night. So many of my friends tell that is because you're still breastfeeding or you're not getting sleep, or maybe she's not eating properly. So you feel very guilty that, am I doing the right thing? Am I not doing the right thing? So I just wanted to some light on that, like what actually is the case.
See, there is no question of consensus. It is an unwritten rule. Till 6 months, exclusive breastfeeding, and after 6 months, you have to wean. You have to shift your semi-solids, and by the time the child is 1 year, he should eat what you are cooking in your kitchen. No noodles, no Cerelac, no Farex. You must get used to the homemade cooked food. Remember, there is nothing like the Indian food. Even when these American babies come to our clinics during the months of December and January, believe me, they love your rice and dal rather than your pizzas and burgers. That is the case. And if you want, and you must always advise on the community that the patient comes from. Suppose they're South Indian, I would say, okay, nothing like a South Indian food like a mashed idli, upma or a shira. If you 6 months, there is no second thought about it. It is practiced. Yeah, man, 1 year you should come back to what you are eating at home. So, No, breastfeeding you continue. You continue till you have. Because the best... Yes. No. Breastfeeding you continue. You continue till you have. It is a God-given gift. We call it Amrit. And nothing can replace it. You have reached the moon, but we have not been able to synthesize breast milk in the factory, neither with the blood. So you should continue breastfeeding till you have. Of course, in the days of today, when 40-50% of the mothers are working, that is a different situation. In there also, we advise, before going to work, feed the baby and go. If you have extra, store it in a bottle, keep it in the fridge, and you need not boil it. Keep it to room temperature and feed it. So there is no question about this. No, feed till you have. I hope sir will agree with me.
See, the word is very simple. When you say exclusive breastfeeding, it is related to breastfeeding. Anything to do with weaning is two words: supplementary and complementary. It is add-on. Nobody talks of stop breastfeeding. There is no question of stopping breastfeeding. It is supplementary or complementary. It complements the breastfeeding or it supplements it. It's that kind. So there is no word which says that stop breastfeeding. Till breast milk is available, feed. There is no this at all. Now coming to something like you brought out, my baby feeds continuously in the night. Sometimes it is non-nutritive sucking. It's basically something child is habituated to sucking and falling asleep. That's something you have to look at. That's something which is created. So over a period of time, you basically need to see whether I am actually doing something nutritive or is just something which the child has got into a habit and sleeping. That is something you need to address on your own. So that will not get into a situation, and then automatically because of those habits, yes, you will have disturbed sleeping habits, you will have wrong eating habits, all the other things which will be associated. So you need to address both. So both are on a different platform here. So breastfeeding doesn't stop. Exclusive is nothing in between, but after 6 months you supplement it or you complement it, and then you look at after a particular time whether you have enough breastfeed to continue or it's a habit.
Well, the point is that protocols are general guidelines, and your doctor will put those protocols that would suit you the best. So there is a small window where that protocol is changed a little to suit a given situation. Like I have a working mother, a protocol may not be exclusive breastfeeding for 6 months because her employer does not give her leave. Okay, so I would tell her, don't worry, you continue breastfeeding when you are at home and I will give you the alternatives. Now if she goes and tells, but my pediatrician allowed me to do that, then she has misunderstood me. The protocol stands, but I would change it to suit the individual. So protocols are meant for general guidelines, and every time our association has so many protocols for every disease, etc. But everywhere the preamble is, these are guidelines. If you change a little, think why you are changing and be sure it's the best for the given child. So that is what it is. Anyone else you want to say something?
I would like to bring the debate back to vaccination. I have a question. I'm a mother of two. I have heard a lot of instances where the MMR vaccine has been linked to autism. So I wanted to know, is there any truth in this? Because I waited till my child was 3, 4, both children, and with a lot of trepidation, is there anything going to happen or not?
Actually, this has been clearly now solved out that MMR and autism has nothing to do with each other. The problem is that MMR was given around 12-15 months, and an autism is a defect that you are born with. But it is visible around the same time. Okay, what is autism? He doesn't talk. He doesn't look at you when called. All that was known to be visible by 1 year, 1.25 years, and that happened to be also an MMR. But there have been people who were worried about it, and the UK stopped giving this because of a fear of autism, and many children died because of those diseases, and by then it was known that there's no connection at all. So the point is, you are well informed, you are well read, but you need to discuss to say what you have read is right or wrong, and I'm sure you have read it, so you know it. So that's your worry. But here are we, exactly the group is exactly meant for that. That the group should kind of tell each other how the correct information is passed on to parents. because there are always some areas which are gray areas, and I think this group should exactly try to do that. Yeah? Yeah. Can we have some more who want to say something? Please come forward. Please come forward. Yeah. Come here, so that we don't strain our necks. We are selfish.
Hello all. I mean, as he said, the only problem pediatricians are having is time constraint. So as parents, we are also facing a lot of issues, day-to-day issues. I mean, for example, there are a lot of habit changes, new habit occurring in our babies. For example, my baby is 2 years and 3 months old. I find a new nail-biting habit, starting since 1 month. I mean, for these small issues, I can't go to a pediatrician and, waste his time. How do we handle with all this? And if any other new habit also comes in, I mean, how do we deal with it? From where do we get information and how do we, handle the situation?
So what I thought is, I mean, there will be many such issues. So what I thought today's forum that we have met, I mean, I may be wrong, so you all can correct me. What we need to discuss are not individual issues in the chapter of vaccination or in the chapter of habit changes. What we need to discuss, for example, for vaccination or for weaning, we need to decide that these issues need to be addressed. We must have standard information which is referred to both by the doctor and the parent. We doctors or our brethren could be guilty of referring wrong information and then telling you, okay, start supplementing at 4 months or whatever. So we are also have to refer to standard. So this group should decide that, okay, this is the standard basic information which both parties should refer. And then you challenge your doctor or ask your doctor that I am talking of this standard information, this says this, then why are you telling me to do against? So that is what we need to do. So about these habits, there will be many such things. My plea is that instead of getting into the solution of each habit, let us discuss today what all to cover in this standard information, put it down on paper. For example, nail biting, this, that, we will form a group and prepare a certain common information for parents, which is to be circulated to all parents and which is the gospel truth for that kind of information. Is that right, sir? Yeah?
At this age, I mean, the particular kid's age, for example, my kid is around 2.5 years old. Their understanding level also, we are not able to, judge on if we tell them, will they understand or what way should we tell them so that they understand that it's wrong. Because it's not possible to tell everything logically because they don't really understand the logic part of it. So we are not able to, take it also because when it's going to be, when we know they're doing something wrong, we're not able to take it also. We want to correct them, but we don't know how to correct them. So we want...
As a fallout of all this, I would think that a part of what we call as proactive counseling that should come from a doctor to the parent is at different ages, how to handle your child for the next 6 months, even a few words about discipline, what is to be done. So this should come as proactive counseling, and from your side it should be a demand for proactive counseling when you go for your 1-year vaccine or whatever, and how do I discipline, how do I handle all this. So we should include all this in part of our model.
Hi, my name is Asha. I have a 15-month-old daughter. One of the things that I have been grappling with is I have friends who are based in the US and Switzerland and various different parts of the world. And childcare is very different as I hear from them in various parts of the world. Very simple thing. My daughter had a very bad cold and we started her on Augmentin and other things. I spoke to a friend of mine in the US and she said, listen, my son, he had very high temperature and the only solution was giving him an ice bath and the doctor would not give him antibiotics. You hear all these conflicting things. I don't know whether there's any standard that is there across the world. If there is none, is there something that we can work towards, at least from an Indian context? Because there's constantly that fear, am I giving antibiotics when I'm not supposed to give antibiotics? I don't know. I don't know the right answer. And obviously, as a parent, you want the best thing to be given to your kid.
I think you are perfectly right. I mentioned in my talk that US works on legal issues. Okay, parents have to accept no antibiotic and the doctors cannot prescribe. Here parents want it, doctors say you want it, take it. There you will be surprised, cold and cough medicines are not available. When I tell my patient, they feel he is an old timer, he has not kept updated. So it's the responsibility of both. See, some of us don't give antibiotics unless required and we make you wait, provided you are ready to wait. In US, there is no choice whether you want to wait. First thing in US, you don't meet a doctor. Okay, you don't have a doctor on the phone. If you are worried, go to an emergency, wait for 4 hours for your turn. Okay, which means that US practice is very doctor friendly and not patient friendly. Our practice is patient friendly. All of us are available on the cell 24 hours. Okay, then there is a misuse also. US has accepted it legally that this has to be done. Doctor cannot be available. If you are worried, you go to a common emergency. Every day new doctor will see. That is their legality. And that is not good for patients. Okay, here we want to do good for patients, for which we are here, that both parties should support each other. That is where it is. We have a protocol. Okay.
At what point do you want to switch from being palliative medicines to an antibiotic kind of a setup? I mean, I'm unclear. And I hear
the question is, no doctor on this earth can tell you in the first 2 days of fever whether you need an antibiotic. When I tell my patient, they feel you are at the wrong place. They are not ready to believe. Our group should spread that message. We are here only for that. Okay, the protocols are same. They are legally implemented. Here we must morally implement. For that we need the help. Nobody in my clinic, we have 4 of us. We never write an antibiotic unless we know. And parents who understand us come to us. Others feel we are fools, they go somewhere else. So it is the parents like you who should spread this. Are you aware that fever should never be suppressed? Now which parents know that? Fever comes only to kill germs and you kill the fever. Now this is what now if you as a parent tell other parent, they will believe. Because you have experience. If I say that, they will say, no, this may be wrong. You want to say something?
The same thing today, there is a protocol for all this, and there is a protocol which is excellent, but there are a minority of doctors who are practicing it and a minority of parents who are accepting that kind of a practice. We are here as a group to convert both these minorities into majorities over a period of time. So our job is to spread to our brethren that let's practice this way. Your job is to spread to other parents that let's accept this honest way of practice and let's not clamor for more drugs and antibiotics. So that's...
See, in fact, as pediatricians also, this year, in fact 2014, we have taken it onus upon us on trying to promote avoid antibiotic abuse. We have run a whole year of campaign. We have done more than 100 programs across the country on this, and it's taken as an onus avoid antibiotic abuse. And let's come to another part of it. I mean, I'm quite sure, sir, myself, all of us have seen mothers also acting very irresponsible. There are plenty of times they'll come and say, doctor, already 2 dose mox de diya. What do I tell them? Okay, एक सुबह दिया और 2 दिन पहला दिया, means not even the right dose. Okay. Or erythromycin, I have given erythromycin. So, I mean, irresponsibility doesn't only last at one side. There is responsibility on both the sides. Then there are other examples. 2 महीना पहले आपने जो प्रिस्क्रिप्शन दिया, I followed that. And कुछ नहीं हुआ तो 2 days later I came. So you are looking at a very kind of things of parents who come to us. And then, I mean, if you ask me a question why I would prescribe Augmentin, I would say, why do you do this? Why do you repeat a prescription which was given 2 months back for maybe some other condition, and you still say, okay, I repeated it? So we have both the kinds. So I think that is what I think our message today is. The responsibility lies on both the sides. It's not only on one side. I think the table has chairs on both the sides. You sit there, I sit here, and we both have to be responsible enough to say that I will not do something which is anti, and then automatically expect the person in front also not to be the same. Only then it works in tandem. Yes, ma'am. Yes.
I think one very small point, even a common cold I don't treat. What I insist on the patient, if a nose is leaking, we have something like what is called as a mucus sucker. But even that mucus sucker, trained, qualified parents are not willing to use it. Instead of pumping in your nasal drops, if you suck out the secretions, the child is comfortable. He'll have a good sleep. So if you get trained in using that, and when I train a mother in my consulting, I always feel I have trained this mother. I tell them, you treat your servants, you treat your neighbors around. It is your train, and that's your responsibility. And if you are trained, the message must go to your people working under you and the people staying around you. So even the common cold can be treated with something like what is called as a mucus sucker, which costs around 25 rupees. Yeah, aspirator. Yeah, please.
Thank you. My name is Sumati. I am the mother of a slightly older child. When I moved to Bombay about 10 years back from Chennai, my daughter fell sick. She was very young then. So I had to take her to a doctor in Chembur. I don't want to name him. But there I found to my horror that he still had a compounding system where he didn't give me any prescription. I am used to following a prescription when I know what drugs are being prescribed. And here he was giving away a few pink, few green ones and some cough mixture. And I was very uncomfortable with that system. When I quizzed the doctor on whether this was an antibiotic or a paracetamol, what he was prescribing, just to be aware of what my child is consuming, I didn't get very satisfactory replies. So this I found is quite prevalent in Mumbai. Why so? Why are we not switched to prescription drugs where we know what we are consuming?
I'm sure most of the mothers here have not seen that. Most of the mothers have not seen that. So what I would plead is that we are not here to say we are holier than cow. I would say that most of us are doing wrong things, parents and doctors both. We are here because we feel passionately we must do the right things. Let us start making a change and making this as a movement. Okay. And we are happy that most of the people who are here have a same feeling that we should do the right thing in a proper way. I think we are here only to spread that message. Tomorrow another 50 people join us, gradually we will. I would end up saying that time must come when you should not go to a doctor who does not follow these protocols. There are enough doctors in the city. Okay, they will change. Okay, the change we can definitely make happen, provided we are passionate. If you come to me and I don't do my job, you must spread the message that he is not doing his job. Okay, who wants to spoil his name? If possible, I want to preserve my name by doing nothing, by doing wrong things, but if I'm at risk, I will do the right thing. I think Indians need a pressure and a push. As I said, internal motivation this group has. External motivation can be brought. I think, madam, you did go to somebody who does that practice that way. I imagine there are enough people. We are not talking about Mumbai or Chennai, but I'm sure that most of the mothers have not found they give prescription, but an occasional one happened to be your way, did not satisfy. But the point is well taken. You wanted to know what he was prescribing. You wanted to know why he was prescribing. That's perfectly right.
Just to add to this, we always as pediatricians have, just like she said that, there are times when I start understanding if she can feel that she wants to know what she's giving the child. I'm quite sure we all pediatricians face one huge thing. Doctor, Ayurvedic de do? homeopathic de दूं? So I said, yes, I mean, I have nothing against homeopaths or Ayurveds, but I said, find me a genuine one first, find me a genuine homeopath or a genuine Ayurved, and then find me a genuine homeopath who will tell you what he's giving you. And then I have an answer. Otherwise, where do I have an answer? Because if you look at all the homeopaths, they are either nate self, arsenicals, mercurials. I mean, all the three words sound very, very, metalloids. So am I going to give my child metalloids? No. So when I don't know what I'm giving, I don't answer. But at the same time, there are genuine people who must be doing genuine work. So just like you asked me, if I won't take pudis. I don't know. I don't have an answer when somebody asks me whether I should go to an Ayurveda or a homeopath. So I would like to.
Yes, we want others to know. Yeah, come.
Hi everyone. Just because we were talking about antibiotics, I wanted to share my personal experience. That was the worst experience I had for my child. My son is 5.5 years old. When he was 3, he had some mouth ulcers and very high fever, around 102 and all. So I consulted the doctor. He gave him medicines and antibiotics, Augmentin and all. And the second day I was going to the doctor, he was prescribing medicines. I was following the instructions very perfectly and was giving all the medicines as he had prescribed. He was not eating anything because he had painful ulcers. I was telling the doctor that he is not eating anything and so many medicines, how can I give? Since there was nothing in his stomach, I just can't give these medicines. He was like, no, you'll have to give. 1 week I followed the instructions and then his condition deteriorated. It was so bad that all these ulcers, they started oozing blood. And he went into dehydration, and the doctor on 8th day, he told me that I can't give any more medicine. You'll have to get him admitted to the hospital. Then I took him to the hospital, I admitted, and then the doctor there, they started shouting at me that, look at your son's condition, what were you doing all this while? Why you didn't take him to the hospital? What were you doing? You didn't take care of your son. I mean, you didn't give him medicines. Now in this kind of situation, what as a parent you will do? You saw one mouth ulcer and you took him to the doctor, followed all the instructions, gave all the medicines that was prescribed. And then after that also on the 8th day, you are tensed, you are crying, looking at your baby that he is in such bad pain. And you are getting shoutings from the doctor that you didn't follow the instruction, you didn't take care of your son, or you didn't take care of your baby. So in such a situation, what as a parent, you as doctors, expect us to do?
At the first instance, I want this group to say what we expect rather than what you saw. Okay, I would say you went to a wrong person. Okay, that's it. And it's our job to turn that wrong person into some right. There's no question. Yes, but that's what I'm saying. I will tell you how you come to know. You must get a documentation in writing what he has his opinion. Take it in writing. If I say it is typhoid, doctor, please write. Don't you get an X-ray report with 10 lines written and a conclusion? Don't you get a laboratory report with a conclusion? You must ask a doctor to give his written reports. Yes, for example, if I say your child has pneumonia, I would say you have fever, you have cough. On examination, I find this, therefore I call it pneumonia, therefore I give this antibiotic. This is called a documentation. If you accept a prescription with the name of your child and the name of the drugs, you have faulted. We want the parent group to start this movement. Okay, when I pay a government servant, I ask a receipt. If he says, "Idhar receipt nahi deta hai," I know what it means. Okay, you have to have a document. That's my first say that you are at the wrong. If the doctor says I don't write, it is like the person says you pay me but I don't give a receipt. You know you are at the wrong place. That's number one. Second is, what does the document mean? It means honesty. Okay, because I stand by what I've written. Transparency. When he goes to him, he says, "Oh, Dr. Ambedkar wrote this. How terrible. My image is at stake. So I take care of it." Honesty, transparency is seen only by documentation, I want the parent group to spread this to say that go to a doctor and ask documentation. Lastly, remember that my documentation has to be honest, but not necessarily always right. Okay, but when it is honest, there are two things. I have thought over it and written. I am responsible. I am accountable. So I must be mostly right. Humans are likely to be wrong to some extent. Give a doctor that allowance to be wrong. But if he is wrong, let him take care that your life is not in danger. Even if he is wrong, he will. Not 100% right, keep that in mind. But I have to be honest and I have to do my best. My best may not be every time the right outcome because there are many variables.
I think we all sympathize with what happened to you. It was most unfortunate. I think your second part where you said that after taking care and following the first doctor to a T, the second doctor told you that what were you doing, what kind of a mother. So that was very insensitive on the part of the second doctor. As Uday just said, doctors have this fallacy, they are not taught communication in their syllabus and they don't learn communication later. So they remain doctors like this who are speaking wrong things. So it was wrong on the part of the doctor. But now we are here to discuss how to set all this correctly. So what you can do and what we can do. That's what we are here to do.
Your experience tells us which are the areas we want parents and doctors to improve. We are here to know that.
Sir, can I add a point? They must see the qualifications of the doctor to whom you are going. Even in the city of Bombay today, we have 60% who are Ayurvedic physicians, Unani physicians, homeopaths, RMPs who just write doctor. But see their prescriptions, see their qualifications. Go to a guy who has gone to an institute for 7 years, choose an MBBS doctor. I'm not against anything, but they must choose the right doctor also.
I would like to add here, rather than we as parents going and asking the doctor to write everything and document everything, why can't doctors follow a right protocol?
Madam, I've already said doctors should have internal motivation, otherwise an external pressure. Okay, I agree, but why should parents also not demand, madam? Okay, if parents demand and if he doesn't give, you are at a wrong place. Okay, how can I change every doctor? But can we change? As a parent, you are concerned with your child, you will easily do the best. Make the doctor do best is what we plead. I am not saying doctors should not do. We will try through our association to make them realize that parents have these complaints, don't do it. But after all, human beings have a different way. Yesterday when the trains were in trouble, they caused more trouble. According to me, that was terrible. As such, they don't have trains. Now they will not have trains. Motormen will go on strike. The trains will stop. Who is at loss? Not the railway, not the minister. Again we. So we as beneficiaries, and we are part of you. We sympathize with what you are saying. But I think you also pressurize. We also try. But if you pressurize, it has to work. If we try, it may or may not work. That's the reason. Yeah, somebody else. Please come, please come, please come.
Well, all thanks to technology, mothers have this thing of, being part of many support groups. Mommy support groups, which have many, many members, many mommies. If there is a health issue that the child is facing, instead of actually going to or meeting a doctor or a pediatrician, Facebook pe fatafat question pucho, there will be 20 mothers, sudden made pediatricians who answer. I run a support group myself, but these are some of the things two topics I avoid in my support group as well. One is maid references, and second is any medical advice been given. But then there are support groups that are doing that. So, I don't know, maybe something from the association that can be...
I started off by saying that we have to just define issues that we need to cover, like say vaccination, weaning advice, but there should be a standard information. And when we come to internet and all these support groups, that's where that standard information comes in. There's lots of information on internet, but the person should know which one is authentic and which one I can go by. So it's probably the job of this group to evolve some basic standard information on basic issues or areas.
Like she just said, as a mother, as a support group user, I think, even as mothers, we see there's something called as herd mentality. Herd mentality in the sense, oh, I went there, you go there, that kind of thing. It's that kind of a thing which also works a lot. In fact, like she just said, I go to schools to do a lot of awareness and education campaigns, and believe it or not, parent-teachers associations are big drivers of everything today. Whether you want to see whether it's something to do with which picnic to go or which food nutrition supplement to take or anything, they are the ones which drive the whole thing. And third, like just Dr. Rajesh said, there are plenty of let's say sites which are available today, but if you don't visit the right one, you're going to be in deep trouble. So at the end of it, when you want to look at any kind of an activity or support to give, unless you go to the right person, you'll never get the right advice. And like Sir said, if you insist that the doctor should document, we are pushing it as an association, as teachers, as wherever we speak, we say your prescription is not complete if it doesn't have your findings as to what you found after you examine what is the diagnosis. So we are trying to promote it, but if you insist it, I'm quite sure, I think 80% of whatever is happening will not happen, and 80% of you will probably be more satisfied mothers in future. So automatically you will find that everybody will follow because you insist that I want it in a diagnosis.
Hi, I have a 2.5-year-old daughter. Now this is about an experience again I would like to share. When my daughter was 1.5-year-old or 1-year-old, I believe. We were talking about qualifications of the doctors to check. Now I'm talking about a very reputed pediatrician who practices somewhere in this area itself. I would not like to name. Like she said, there are support groups and this and all, and when there are people who advise you. So after talking to a lot many people, who is the best pediatrician you should go to? Okay, so that kind of, and who's closest to your house. That's how we went to this pediatrician. From day one, we had been referring our child to that person. So he knows the child history from day one, from the first vaccination point of view. Now my daughter had urine infection and we were advised certain reports. Now these reports were again taken from a reputed place from where all my wife's pregnancy tests had also been taken. So never were the reports defaulted. But when I took the reports to the doctor suddenly said, I can't trust this place. I don't allow my patients to go to this place, but I can't trust this report. And at the same time, my daughter was under fever, and we were getting a bit panicked as to what to do. We wanted some kind of prescription, some kind of advice to happen as to somehow she could get going, because she was having fever 2 in the night and those kind of things. So he just refused to take any medication. He just said that, no, I cannot. You go to a different place. I will prescribe. You go to this place, get the reports done. Only after that will I start the situation. What decision we took was we immediately went to a different pediatrician, and he prescribed and he took it looking at the same reports. He took the medication ahead. But what is you guys advise in such a situation? And this is from a reputed pediatrician, and the reports were also from a reputed place.
See, again, this is a complex issue. So let's, instead of talking of one particular experience or example, for example, in this situation, just like we are now discussing that the other lady who just said about boils, she went to a wrong person. Whether this lab is wrong or right, we are not here to, make a judgment. So let's rise above these individual experiences and let's decide which are the areas that we should address. So from this experience, I would say that we need to decide that we need to address that when a doctor insists on investigations from a particular place, what can the parent ask to decide or to sort of check, should I do it from there only or is anywhere else fine? So he needs to ask something. So we evolve this information from your experience and we take it in this program. Do you agree to that?
Yes, I'll take that as feedback, but
Okay, so let me get into those complexities now. I thought I was trying to save time, but let me get into those complexities. I'll tell you the complexities. I'll tell you by giving you an example. I am practicing in Bandra. We have all known of a disease called typhoid. The test for typhoid is a test called blood culture. I have 20 laboratories in Bandra. They are all extremely reputed. But the problem is that for doing a blood culture, you need to have a regular flow of that equipment. And that equipment should be used daily. Now, I and a few, 3-4 of us are the less common ones who ask for this test, though it is the best test. Other doctors don't ask. Now, because other doctors don't ask, because there is no demand, there is no need to supply. So these 20 laboratories don't have that equipment which they use daily. So their results are not good. So I am forced to tell my patient that in Bandra, if you want to do a blood culture, go to Hinduja Hospital only. Because Hinduja Hospital uses that machine daily. Now I have a very logical, clear reason why I am asking you to go to Hinduja. I have no cutback from Hinduja. Now the point is, to cut the story short, this reason is very genuine. I can send the same sample to those 20 labs and 21st to Hinduja. I am sure those 20 labs I will not get my answer, Hinduja I will get my answer. So I have a reason for that. So this is genuine. I am not saying in your case what was the reason, because I am not the competent to comment on it. So just like we said that there are good doctors and there are average doctors and there are bad doctors, there are good labs, average labs, bad labs. So it's a complex issue. But what I'm trying to say is that if someone asks me why only Hinduja, why not this lab on Linking Road, I have a scientific reason. You owe me that question, I owe you that answer, then it is anybody's choice what you do, right? So from your experience, the distilled take back that we have is that we should be able to answer a patient why a particular lab if so, otherwise ask them to do it from any lab, right? No, I agree. I agree. I agree. Absolutely. So I am. So I am open to the possibility that you were taken for a ride. I am open to that possibility. I am just trying to say I don't know that area, so I cannot comment. But having brought up this issue that if a doctor insists to do a test from her, what is the fallout? Doctor should be able to explain why only here. Parents should be able to ask why only here, right?
Yes, that is agreeable. See, like we began our sessions, when we thought that we must have this interaction, we both actually should understand that medicine is not mathematics, where 1 and 1 is not 2. And just like, if you are probably trying to, look at something where we say, yes, the doctor said, I don't believe this lab. I have got enough patients who say, don't send me to a lab. Okay, so it is both the sides. If you just said the doctor should have sent me there, but you would say, last time I got a test there, it was wrong. So you don't want to go there. So it's either way it's true. So we can't just hold it. Maybe the doctor's experience with that lab could have been some suspicious report in the past. So leave it to him. Yeah, and he's guided you. Yes, if he has suspicion on the report, he's not going to treat you, because if he's got suspicion on the report, he's not going to treat you. But he was fair enough to say, I'm not going to treat you. Otherwise, he could have taken the report, treated you, and if something had gone wrong tomorrow, he said, if you didn't trust it, you could have got it done again. So it is it's going to be difficult. There is no. Absolutely. Yes. First go. That's what communication basically means.
Sir, 1 minute. Sir, regarding last time's only that protocol thing, I wanted to also add on that about supplementation. What supplements to be given and not to be given, right from infancy to when they are growing. See, why I'm asking you this is because I've worked on other pharma, like gynecology and all also. Is it really possible for us to make a body where on certain parameters we really have good protocols so that it's unanimous? Because when I talk to my friends, some of the doctors, right from first month, they give calcium and vitamin D supplements. Some doctors just don't believe in giving it at all. And there always is a question mark. Your doctor told, my doctor did not say. So if there is a protocol, it will be, if we can really work towards that.
There are good protocols, and we can define that this is the standard protocol.
Yeah, like just the way we have in the file vaccinations, compulsory vaccines, so everybody knows that these are to be taken. Same way for supplements also, if it is done, that area can be included. And just one more thing, I'm not pushing it too far, but when you said about documenting, I went and I checked my baby's file. Sometimes documentation is very smartly put. It's very fever, little rash, or it's not very concrete. So if we could follow a little bit better, I know everybody's prescription pad is a little different, but certain things have to be mentioned. Like when you go to certain hospitals, they have that tick marks, whatever you have to do. You don't even have to write. They do the tick marks, so it's very clear and lucid. But when a doctor writes, sometimes it is a little gray. Maybe the doctor is not clear, or maybe that is genuinely the case, So there.
I feel that more than the actual, the literal meaning of what the doctor has written and whether he has written 5 symptoms or what sir means on a little broader scale is, the moment I write means I am honest, I am willing to let this paper be read by a third party and comment on my paper. The moment I am willing for someone else to read and comment means that I have written clearly to the most honest ability. Then because see, like you said, many times the diagnosis is not clear. So what will I write? I will write fever for 1 day, on examination no findings, child is stable. That's all that I have right now to write. I don't have more to write. So I'll write that child is not serious, but I don't have any findings. So what to write, a parent may not be able to understand whether what to write, is this complete, is this incomplete. But let's take one step forward. Having written means that the doctor is conscientiously clear. Yeah.
I just wanted to add, for the benefit of for the group, I think Dr. Chokani has been repeatedly and everybody has been saying that we need to stick to, I think the purpose of this group. I think let's kind of rephrase that, why are we here again? The reason we are here is that we're trying to create a platform where all of us can change something in our society, and we all are a party to it, like the doctors are, and therefore we need to pick the most important change that we want to bring in there. So it's most important areas that we need to bring a change about. So again, I'm sure you have plenty of questions, and these are the topmost that you can get. But that doesn't mean that we bring in individual issues on here. Probably if you want your answer to your individual issues, probably you can also take an appointment and go and meet them. So what we do is we stick to the larger issues areas, and we move forward.
Thanks for that. One of the things that I wanted to also highlight is that as parents, we don't know when to press the panic button. Is there some set of things, some set of symptoms when we need to press the panic button and call up a doctor at 2 o'clock in the night? Or, as new parents, you invariably get panic.
Very well taken. In fact, that's one of the biggest parts of this program, to teach parents which are the danger symptoms where you have to press the panic button.
Yeah. So I think I don't know anything. Or if my daughter is not breathing well, is that a panic symptom that I need to rush her to the hospital? Because one of my friends had a similar instance with her daughter. So if we need a body of work wherein we can refer to, I think that's important. The other thing connected to the same point is that increasingly we are talking about wellness. It's not about just this. So it needs to transcend beyond medication to nutrition. So again, is there a body of work wherein we can say, like, my daughter doesn't drink too much of milk. Is this something that I need to be concerned about or not? I agree. Probably, I'm just giving you an example. But can we have some body of work which says that this is the kind of nutrition that it's okay if the kid is not having so much of milk or not? And the third thing is in terms of habits also. Is there some kind of a protocol that we can that we have in place in terms of kids nowadays get exposed a lot to mobiles, iPads. I don't know whether I'm pushing the button too much over here, but is there a protocol that is to say that kids below a particular age should not watch more than so much of, or be exposed to so much of iPad time, things like this? Do we have some kind of a protocol, or are we building it?
You have given us a clear thing. The whole idea to meet like this was exactly to get a feel, and now we will start working on priority areas. Like you said, what are the danger signals? When you should go to a doctor. Maybe next is when you should not go to a doctor. What do you expect out of a doctor? Okay, then we will take one by one further and say, what about habits, thumb sucking, nail biting, discipline, temper tantrum? There are so many things to teach parents. But let us start somewhere, and I think having got the whole idea, we will just crystallize and analyze in our mind and say, which are the 2 priority areas? Let's start working on it. Let's meet that. But I am very happy that all this is coming up. Some more people who want to say something, feel free. Okay, we are here just to learn what everybody thinks about every other person, and I think we are open to do that. So feel free, write to whatever. Okay, yeah, please come. Please come.
So I think we are exactly at that point in time where we would want to kind of look at a few things that we have put up on, and probably it's addressing the same. And the idea is also how are we going to take this forward so that we make it change, and we understand where how does the change happen. So, Krishnan,
I won't use this because I feel conscious. The first thing is that in this particular meeting, we understood that there are a number of issues that we wanted to deal with. The sign turned to be a danger sign. How do you observe that your child, the signs that a child is not well, and how do you take notes to go to a doctor? The point we really want to make is that the first step in the change towards a responsible way of care is to take the onus on you. Many of the things I was listening, the one thing that struck me is that how many of us know what exactly is wrong with a child? How many of us know till date what antibiotics have been given to my child? How many of us really keep track? How many of us really keep track of the immunization schedule? So the first point is that to be able to deal with a variety of issues and the challenges that will come in your care journey, the first step is take the onus on you. You are the primary caregiver of your child. So that's the one point we wanted to bring out in this whole thing. And the specific areas that people have talked about here, we're going to be developing standard packets of information, which will form a group and will disseminate to all of you. But I think the starting step of this whole journey is to own up and put yourself in the line and say that I am the primary caregiver of your child. The first step is that, and when that happens, you start paying attention. You start noticing things. You start asking questions. You start following up. All those things will start falling in place. So this is the starting step, and this meeting we wanted to keep it focused on how mothers should talk such that doctors listen, and how doctors should talk such that mothers should listen. So we take that and we want to move into this, some core aspects that we have touched in this event. This is, we have talked about mothers, what mothers expect from doctors and what doctors expect from mothers. But here we are trying to present from a child's point of view. And the first slide, the first set of 6 slides is really messages to doctors here. And observe, listen, diagnose with care. Doctor uncle, I have a runny nose, but I still play, eat and sleep well. This slide came from a little story that doctor told us in his clinic. Doctor, I would love it if you can just relate that.
I think the point that this slide makes is that don't treat the symptom of the child, but treat the child. Here is the child who is happy, sleeping well, eating well. What else is he supposed to do? If his nose is running, it will stop by itself. That is the message. Don't look at the symptom, but look at the child. And here is a child who says, I still play, eat and sleep well. No, he is telling his doctor and mother, don't worry, my cold will stop one day. So message is look at the child and don't look at the symptoms. Yes, observe the symptom, watch, but watch the child. That is more important. That's why observe, listen and diagnose with care. That's the message.
Yeah. The next one is, do I really need to be pricked? It hurts a lot. And use expert judgment, investigate only when required.
So when I am asked, doctor, are you sure what you are saying, or you need to confirm? If it's a simple matter, leave it to my judgment. Even if my judgment is wrong, I will correct it. Don't prick for nothing. Okay. So depend on the clinical judgment. And how are you sure? I am sure. I document it. So I am sure. So I think that's where it is. Yeah? Please tell my parent not to panic. Okay. Explain the course of treatment to parents. Okay. So that if I say just give paracetamol and wait for 2-3 days, hopefully the viral infection will disappear. Wait for it. Okay, that's the thing. Today, dengue fever, for example, is a big risk. It's really no risk. And every virus has the same risk. Media says dengue, so everybody talks of dengue. Okay, every virus has a small risk of complication. We want to tell parents how to pick up complication early. Otherwise, wait and watch. 999 will get better. 1 out of 1,000 gets into trouble. We want all parents to know how to diagnose early the trouble oncoming. That's it. And nobody can foretell the trouble, nobody can stop the trouble, but everybody can revert the trouble if picked up early. So that's the message. Right? Kya batao, Doctor ji, I have a worried mom, please tell her all she needs to know. Okay, this all child is telling, okay, that my mother is worried, so please answer satisfactorily all questions. Now some of the parents did say how doctors talk badly and are irresponsible. We take a note of that, and I think we must answer all. Sometimes your question may be silly, but they are not silly to you. They are silly to me because I feel they are silly. But you have a genuine question, and I need to answer genuinely. And I think we want to propagate this. Can you write what I am suffering from, Dr. Uncle? I want to show to my friends. Again, the point is I want document from that. Okay, you want to show his friends what the doctor has said. Okay, so don't you want that? So share a written diagnosis and treatment plan. This is what for our doctors are. We are going to propagate, but you must also know what doctors must do. So that is what it is. Dr. Uncle, you didn't check the circumference of my head. This is just to tell you that it is very important for doctors to measure the length or the height, the weight and the head circumference in the first 2 years at least. Okay, as parents you want to know the weight only. As a doctor I know that even the length, the head circumference are equally important. So this child is trying to remind that, oh, you forgot to measure my head circumference. See that every doctor has a growth chart and tells you how your child is growing. So we try to make all this thing more rational and more correct. And I think that's the whole story. Mama, it's not just high fever, it's 102 degrees. Again telling you, 102 may not be high. What is high fever and what is troublesome fever? Troublesome fever is where the child's behavior is not right. Sir, child is very irritable, cranky, he never cried so much in fever. I am worried. But doctor, he has a high fever, but he plays. I am happy. So again the behavior of the child, not just the degree, describe the illness without missing vital details. And I think we want all parents to know that child's behavior. See, the child is innocent. If fever is high but the disease is mild, child plays. If the fever is low but the disease is severe, child does not play. How important. Innocence of the child tells a pediatrician whether it's serious or not. Okay, once he becomes a little older, he starts becoming adult, and we call that behavior adulterated. That's why we are all adults. before I start getting fever, I am already sick. My child is having fever but not sick. All of you mothers must be knowing, with fever they play. When they play with fever, they are telling their pediatrician and the mothers, don't worry, the disease is mild, fever is high. So that's important, right? Yeah. Mom, I'm feeling drowsy, let me sleep. Well, this could be the doctor's medicine that's putting him to sleep. Because as a parent, you know, oh, he never slept at this time. Okay, many cough cold remedies put them to sleep, know what expect from treatment. So what is next you need to do? Not only document, but when I write 2 drugs, ask me, doctor, do you think both the drugs are necessary or only one can do? Okay. Then ask, I hope there are no significant side effects. Yeah, that's your genuine question. But if I say, what the hell you mean by asking? I know my job. You are at the wrong place. Okay. I don't have to say I'm right.
For this particular one, since change in behavior could be a danger sign as well. No, so whether this will give the correct message, we have written know what to expect from the treatment, but whether this is due to treatment or a danger sign is difficult to judge. So whether we would modify this a little or...
What you want to say is that ask the doctor. Okay. Know what to expect. Now the doctor may say, no, it's not my drug, I'm worried. That I've already said, behavior of the child tells you where to run. If the child is drowsy, the mother must learn. Then the doctor may say, don't worry, it's my drug, stop the next drug and you'll be all right. So, but your point is taken. We'll see that it is made clear that drowsiness could be the disease itself. Yes. Mama, chill, I'm feeling better, let the medicine take its own time. Okay. So again, medicines take time. Many times you must have said, first dose and I was all right, which means to medicine, no dose also would have been all right. So medicines take time. Okay. Mama, you forget, doctor uncle had asked me to take the medicine for 5 days. Okay. There was a study in UK in 80s where the doctors as patients were asked whether they complete the 5-day therapy, and none of them did because they were busy. Now parents are also busy, children are also busy. So we must follow the protocol and finish. Okay. So that is important. I'm not getting any better, and even the doctor uncle is not able to tell us what's wrong. Now the child is also trying to tell you, do something different. Okay, be alert, know when to seek a second opinion. And the best way is to ask a doctor, I am worried. Do you think it's all right if you suggest a second opinion? Okay. If I am honest and I've done my job, I will say take any opinion. But if I've done wrong, I'll say, no, what do you mean? I'm the senior most, I know everything. No. Okay. So you also can judge what his confidence level is and what his honesty level is. In fact, if I've done right, I want 2 more to say, oh, he has done right. Where is the problem of second opinion? Second opinion is not seconds. You get a seconds goods which are cheaper, torn somewhere. Second opinion is a senior opinion. Okay, so don't hesitate to say, I'm a little worried. Do you think I could ask somebody else also? The good answer from a correct doctor would be, oh yes, you can go ahead. Okay, then you know he's honest. Then you can almost say, okay, I've changed my mind, I don't want it. Because he's so honest. Okay, so be clear about that. I think I will ask Krishnan first and then Uday to summarize what he plans to do and what he plans to do. Then we will all follow that. Is that right, Krishnan?
Yes. But there's just a couple of things I would like to say before that. I would like to reiterate that first is that alertness is a basic, it's a real tool for parents. Being vigilant and realizing that you are the final decision maker, you make all the choices. The doctor and the medical system are there to support you. You take your decisions based on information and knowledge which you seek from doctors, not from the internet, not from your friends, not from close relatives. So that's number one. Number 2 point is that what's your role in this thing? your role is, you're the expert on the child's behavior. You intuitively know how your child is. And that's a very important thing. Doctor mentioned about intuition, the role of intuition, the mother's intuition. And sometimes intuition saves life. The mother's intuition saves lives. So that's the second point you need to know. And your expertise on your child's behavior can guide the doctor to do his best. That's the second point I want to leave you with. And third is that being a responsible caregiver is can be learned. It's it primarily starts from the first 2 points which I mentioned, and it's a lifelong journey after that.
Expectations part and what the association will plan to do. Hello. Forefront of disseminating knowledge. And when we are in the forefront of disseminating knowledge, we have only stuck till today as knowledge as it advances what take place, or what scientific changes take place, or what we learned in 84 when we were MBBS, 88 when we were MD, and what changes have taken place today. But like I said, that none of our syllabus at the MBBS or MD ever taught us that how we should communicate with parents. And so when we look at what we want to do in future is, one is understand your expectations, try to live up to them. It's a two-way mechanism. And I think today we have tried to understand, yes, that there are expectations. But then with this expectation also comes a huge word, responsibility. And you are as responsible as I am. I basically work on what information you give me. So you should give me responsible information, and you should be disciplined when you give it to me. It should not be piecemeal, it should not be carry forward. And you also should basically act as responsible parents, because a child ultimately is somebody who doesn't complain, like I said. So what you need to carry forward and what we need to carry forward, we need to work on a platform where we will disseminate, and in this responsibility, if you insist on certain basic things which we discussed today, I think we have a long way to go, and this information from mouth to mouth, person to person, patient to patient, doctor to doctor will enforce, and we will start seeing results, I hope, in near future, though I'm not going to put a dateline or a timeline to it, in the near future. And of course, we are very happy that Pepper Wellness has taken this as an initiative, and we will try to promote this I was looking at the student stage itself in medical colleges. In addition to that, as an association to practicing pediatricians. And yes, if we are able to tie up with other specialities, whichever it be, we'll try to sensitize both the doctors and parents to behave in this responsible manner. Thank you very much.
I'd like to conclude with just one point on, I'll call Raghu here. He's from the Pepper team.
So, first of all, thanks a lot to each one of you for taking your time out on a Saturday and coming out here, and thanks most profusely to the experts who are here from the medical fraternity, Dr. Amdekar and others. Thanks a lot for being here. I think the most important initiative that IAP is trying to do is reach out to the community and say that we have a responsibility together. So, what are we going to do? What is the next step? I think that's the most important question. We all have come here. How do we move forward? What are the things that we're going to do next? So what are we going to do is, like Krishnan also mentioned during the, that there are going to be packets of information. We're going to find out priority areas. And the best way to create a change is, started in a small way. So it's a journey that we all are taking it together. And we all have to make this change possible. So we're going to take up priority areas and small packets of information, and try and see how we can create that behavioral change in you first. And we would want you, who will join us as advocates, to change the behavior in the community by you as advocates of responsible child care. So, just to give you an example, like Dr. Amdekar has always been saying, what are the 5 things that you need to know as a parent when you go to your doctor? What are the 5 things that you go and ask a doctor? Suppose if we come up with this packet of information, we would want every single parent in the city of Mumbai to know what is that 5 question is. So how do I reach to every single parent in this city? Is I have 50 advocates here. I train them on these 5 questions. And I want this 50 to train another 5,000. And that 5,000 to train another 15,000. I think that's how that small packet of information will reach the population of Mumbai. Right? So that's why it's so important that, this small group is going to be a part of triggering that mass movement of starting with responsible childcare in a small way. So, and how are we going to deal with you in dealing with these packets of information? Are we going to keep calling you on every Saturday? No. Because it's such small packets of information, we're going to use technology. And we will be in touch with you. We will, of course, create a group and we'll be in touch with you. And the best part about this whole packets of information is that it's going to come from the medical fraternity and the topmost association, right? So it's going to be an authentic information. There's nothing that we're going to put out there which is not ratified by the experts or by the steering committee, right? So that's the next step. So we will surely get back to you on, so like what Dr. Amdekar said, like Sir said, we'll identify the priority area of that one small change that we want to bring in right now, and then take it on from there to create this kind of packets of information over a period of time. And it's like I said, it's a journey, and we'll keep walking the journey together. Yeah? So,
one last point. I would like Dr.
Just like we in Bombay would probably get it easy, I think, I would like to hear, because we would like to take it to tier 2 cities also. The same thing should carry forward. So I think, he has plans to take it to interiors of Maharashtra. So maybe you have something which you would like to say.
I think a huge responsibility has fallen on our shoulders. So let us make it a small group and let's see how it goes in Mumbai. And from the learnings from Mumbai, I plan to take it to the interior of districts of Maharashtra where it is most required. Let Mumbai take the lead, and I will take it across to the other small districts in Maharashtra and see that it is a success. Of course, monetarily we are not depending on you at all. We don't expect anything. But the beginning, my plan is to put it in the medical colleges all over the Maharashtra and then bring it as a part of teaching programs, if not students, at least the interns. Because the intern is one guy who is just coming out into practice, and he's a youngster who is very egoistic. He feels he's got a stethoscope around his neck and he can do a lot, so license to kill. So there will our priority start right from the grassroots level, at the interns level. I had started a program even in Bombay sometime back, but then it fizzled out. But let us hope this will not fizzle it up. That responsibility we can take and see that reaches the periphery, because ultimately the message has to go across to the entire state. Thank you so much.
Before you all go, one nice little surprise. I'd like to call Apsara on stage. And the point here is that, Apsara, please come. She's going to play a little piece on the violin. She started learning violin at the age of 6, and now she's about 12. The point is that health goes beyond medicine. It's about wholesome living, and fine arts and music is an example, or it exemplifies wholesome living. So that's what she's going to. Thank you, Apsara. With that, we conclude today's session.
Hello, please hold on. We'll be having tea served for you. And there's one more point which I would like to mention is soon our website will be up and running in next couple of weeks. And since we have your contact numbers and your mail IDs, very soon we'll be communicating with you in terms of what are the next steps that our dear friends just mentioned to you. So all this will come to you shortly. And from there on, this movement will start on, and this is just the beginning, right? So please be aware that we will be starting to communicate with you very shortly, clearly giving what steps, what are these packets that will come to you, right? So thanks for your time. We really appreciate the time and patience that you really shared with us and the good examples and experiences that came across. So we'll really work out on this to take this forward from here. Okay? Thank you. Thank you.